Hi everyone, welcome back to the bookshelf, or welcome if you're new. I'm Grace, and today we're going to be talking about the one, the only, Sunrise on the Reaping. I mean, when I finished this book, I was immediately like, I have to get on, let me get my camera, let me get my microphone, I need to talk about it. Here we are. This is the background for today. Oh, shoot. I knew that was going to happen. I actually had written in my notes for the video, careful, your background might fall. And I was right. It fell in the first 5 seconds. Oh no. Stay. So if you haven't bought your copy yet, and if you haven't, what are you doing? But okay. I think President Snow is gonna have to go somewhere else. Sunrise on the Reaping. My favorite character in the book, in case you haven't seen my little short about it, my favorite character is Maisley Donner. I'm sorry, Haymitch. You are lovely. And you are my favorite drunk. But I think that Maisley Donner really holds, like, more, how do I say this? Like, lasting power, you might say? Well, Maisley's 16 years old with great cheekbones. Two things Drizella can never achieve. Like, already, even on like a random page, she holds up as like this character that isn't really about like the franchise. Like, she could exist in any franchise, you know? She could be like any sort of like snarky, sarcastic, character that you think is rich, but then she has character and she has like wit and humor. And I feel like that's what really makes her grow beyond the Hunger Games into she could exist in any book series, she could exist in any movie, like in any movie. Now, you're going to look for the Maisley Donner of the series, which I feel like Suzanne Collins kind of created not a new archetype, but like a new variant of it. As far as the ending, I think that might have been Suzanne Collins was really trying to show us that President Snow isn't just a teenager with good hair, but also like the president of Panem in like diet version, like diet Pepsi President Snow. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like President Snow in the original series over there, he's more calculated, he's more of a defined villain. But I feel like with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, it was almost like, well, he's a teenager, so it's fine. And I feel like Suzanne Collins' response, I feel like her direct response to that was to make this book where President Snow basically just takes a fascination with Haymitch, much the same way that he did with Lucy Gray, much the same way that he does with Katniss later on. Just kind of has that baby girl moment where he's just like, I just kind of want to control people and then kill them. But the red gummies, I feel like, was a real metaphor for how President Snow sees young love, and especially how he sees like young relationships, and he sees it as a threat to fear and to the control that he has over Panem. Panem? Panem. 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 I got it. We came back around. I was really confused that I was having a stroke there, but we got it. We're good. But it's the control that he has over Panem that makes him fear relationships where people feel like they can trust each other and start to think independently. That's a threat to him. And I feel like Lenore Dove being from the Covey really reminds him of Lucy Gray, obviously. I feel like we all kind of picked up on that. I think we all sing. But I feel like his response to that was to try to just exterminate it immediately. And by the way, the epilogue. The epilogue is something that I really want to talk about, because I feel like it really, some people saw it as like, oh, this depressing ending where nothing's changed and he's still mourning Lenore Dove and everything. But I saw it more as like, yes, he's still struggling with alcohol, but now he has people in his life. Whereas earlier, until Katniss and Peeta came along, he very much didn't. And so I see it as like now, Katniss and Peeta, they're not just going to abandon him. They're not just going to stop caring about him. Once they've, defeated President Snow, I said that like they were Spider-Man. Haymitch doesn't really have anything to be afraid of as far as mentoring future contestants from District 12. So then they're just his family, and they want to be there for him. And, it says like they bring him bread and they bring him baked goods and they let him play with the kids and everything. And I feel like that really is the ending that he deserves, even if it's not the one that obviously, like, I wanted. Even reading it, I was like, oh, can he end up with Lenore Dove, though? Like, maybe alternate universe? Can we just, like, retcon the entire original ending for Haymitch and just start over? Like, can we do that? But I knew, deep down, how it was going to end. We all did. He didn't end up with Lenore Dove, and that Maisie Donner, had to, the way that she did. But, it had to happen in order to keep the books consistent. So that's where we are with Sunrise on the Reaping. And so now, this is purely a passion project, this next part, but I wanted to talk about the Taylor Swift album that I most associate with each Hunger Games book, and I feel like best fits the themes of the book. So I haven't decided which one for Sunrise on the Reaping yet, but let's just go through in order. So for the Hunger Games, I picked Folklore. I have turned the lyric booklet around because I actually really like this back cover, even though it is the back cover, so it basically just looks the same. I like this cover because I feel like it shows the hair, and we all love the Folklore hair, And I picked this one because it was really... Now I have PTSD from things falling over. But I feel like Folklore really encapsulates the first book and then Evermore for the second book because, I think we've all determined, like, throughout our time in the Hunger Games Taylor Swift fandom, that the Hunger Games deals more with, like, the immediate action and the immediate reflection on, like, you're thrown in with someone and you kind of have feelings for them, but you don't know, but you're also trying to survive and you're also finding out all these other things about the government. So it's very much about realizations, and that's why I think Folklore works, because Folklore is very much an album about, like, realizing you have feelings. It's an album with, like, a teenage love triangle, as we all know. And it's also an album that's very nature focused. It's an album where, given the, like, aesthetic of the album and the tour visuals and everything, we all determined that Folklore is kind of like a more woodsy album. And the Hunger Games Folklore has that sort of cynicism brought on by adulthood, and the Hunger Games is about kids who have to grow up too early in order to survive. And I feel like that's why it works. And then for Catching Fire, I picked Evermore because I feel like Evermore, we've determined that Evermore is more about saying goodbye and more about the step after realization. Like, you realize something about yourself or something about your world or something about your feelings. And then the step after that, which I feel like really defines Catching Fire and Evermore together, besides the fact that they're both orange, which I didn't even notice until I put them side by side. And then I was like, hey, those just kind of, like, match, like, aesthetically. Like, how weird. And even and I'm just seeing this now, the Hunger Games is also, like, black and white. Oh, wait a minute. Did I do it? Oh, yeah. And Mockingjay is blue, and the Midnight's aesthetic is also blue. Not the specific album cover that I got, but with Catching Fire and Evermore, I feel like Evermore worked as the album to define the book, and it's most similar to the book because the album is about the step after realization, when you realize something about the world, about your feelings, about who you are, And then you have to come to terms with how are you going to confront someone? How are you going to say goodbye? How are you going to treat yourself? How are you going to treat your friends? What is the action step that you take? Because Catching Fire is about, like, you start to hear about the rebellion. You know, you start to see more decisions about Peeta and Katniss. Because was Gale ever really an option? Like, technically, Gale is on the other side of one of my prints. You know, like, we have this one here. We have Peeta, we have Katniss, we have Snow. Gale, I think, is on the back of this one. But in no way was I going to put Gale on my shelf. You guys don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. No one wants to see that. So we're not going to see it. We're going to see Peeta, the bread boy, instead. And we see more decisions regarding that and less decisions about realizing. And I feel like that's really why Evermore fits thematically with Catching Fire. And now this one I loved. So President Snow, the fella that fell off my shelf many times today. So we have Lucy Gray on one side, and then we have Snow on the other side, which I don't know if you saw my first video. I'll link it below, but my first video was sort of like an introduction to my channel, and I sort of showed my prints. So if you want to see what's like on the other side and get a better view of all of those, definitely go check out my first video. So, President Snow. I feel like he really defines like Taylor Swift's vengeful time, and a very easy pick for this would have been Reputation. Very easy pick would have been Reputation, to be like, oh, his Reputation, and oh, the book's green. But technically, Reputation's main color is black, not green. So that's why I didn't pick Reputation. But I actually went outside the Taylor Swift discography. I had to, because I feel like I needed also a guy who feels, and also a guy who really is like Princess Fairy Queen, which is Conan Gray. Conan Gray really defines that, as far as like never forgetting anything and never letting anything go that ever happened to you ever, no matter how many years and who it was by and how long you knew them and whether it was for 2 weeks. That's Conan Gray. And considering that, I mean, President Snow only knew Lucy Gray for like what, like 2 months? 2 months, and they already had like a potential future together. Like, this guy was planning ahead. This guy like would have like been stalking her Instagram and would have been like knowing everything about her family by the second date. Like, he really defines princess energy, you know? Like, he is a diva. Like, you know, like, he feels royal, you know? He feels like he deserves everything in the world. And you know what? We love that for him. But unfortunately, the way that he did it was not that great. Now, we are going to talk about the Hunger Games movie, okay? I'm settled in. The casting. Okay. So for the casting, I originally thought that we were going to get, if I'm being completely honest, I thought that Rudy Pankow was going to be cast as Haymitch. And I know he was kind of like the front runner, like he was the one where as soon as literally you finished the book, you were like, oh, he would work great. He needs to be in there. But I honestly, after I saw the casting, like the official one, the one that they found for Haymitch, I was like, you know, I almost feel like that works better. Because if being completely honest, we all know Rudy Pankow from Outer Banks, right? Like, he played JJ. We all love JJ. We all love Outer Banks. But I feel like that character would have been almost too similar, where it would have felt like you started to not really see a difference between the two. And you would start to be like, oh, well, he played one like traumatized character, and then he plays another traumatized character, and it's kind of like similar themes as far as the character. And I feel like that's why they ultimately didn't cast him, because his repertoire, even though he has the skills, obviously, he's displayed almost exactly the same skills. And I feel like that's why they ultimately didn't cast him, because they wanted someone who you could more associate him directly with Sunrise on the Reaping, and not just be like, oh, well, he's playing the same character. So, McKenna Grace, like, McKenna Grace is Maisie Donner. Oh my gosh, what a perfect decision. Because I was sitting up late at night. Who could you cast as Maisie Donner? Like, and then I realized only someone who has played equally iconic characters throughout different veins of like presentation would work to play Maisie Donner. Sort of like someone that pops onto the screen or the page and you just never really think anything. I didn't picture the character any particular one way. Like, some people saw her with red hair, some people saw her with black hair, some people saw her with blonde hair. I honestly didn't picture her any particular way. Maybe because she wasn't in the story that much, or because I knew that she wasn't going to be with him, like, permanently, you know, because and I just kind of knew that she wasn't going to be like a huge part of the story. So it was more focused on Haymitch's story and like the other characters that were going to be in the Hunger Games, because I was kind of like already preparing for like a review and my overview and how I was going to, you know, talk about it like online with you guys. I wanted to filter it through that lens and not get hyper focused on like what each character needs to look like and everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for coming back to chat about the Hunger Games. And I loved, you know, getting cozy and just having a little casual chit chat about it. I would love it if you could come back and hang out at the bookshelf next time. And definitely go and check out my first video if you want to see what my prints look like more up close and see what both sides look like for all of them.